Welcome to Barely Making It, the show about creating things in a world that's falling apart. I'm Zach.
I'm Hannah.
And I'm Kevin.
We're three professional makers who want to help you reach your creative goals by sharing our sharpest tips, dumbest jokes, and earnest love of making things. Today we're going to discuss what a makerspace is and how you can make the best use of them. But before we get to that, we are going to visit our challenge from last week's episode, which was to create a birdhouse using only items from your recycle bin. And we didn't make functional birdhouses because we don't want to kill birds, but I think we made some very interesting decorative pieces. And Hannah, I know you're very excited. Do you want to show us your birdhouse?
I'm stoked out of my mind. Okay.
While Hannah grabs that, pictures of all of these will be on our social media and links in the show notes.
Oh,
Okay.
Wow.
So instead
Yeah.
of making like something that feeds birds,
Shut up.
I just made a little house.
Oh my God.
And it
Does
says,
that say home tweet home?
it does say home sweet
Yeah,
home.
it does.
And it's got bricks on the side.
Got bricks on the side. We got pink doors and pink windows.
Pink doors and pink windows. This is also the box that my dad sent me my annual Easter bunny in. And then when you open it up, at one point it did close, and then it got to a point where it no longer closed. So when you open it, it has 3 stories.
Yep.
This is a couch. It has a living room, and then there's a TV that was made out of a Coke can.
Ooh, nice.
This is a piece of paper that was in their recycle bin. This is the top of a coffee tin.
Yeah.
And that's the sink, and that's the toilet.
Oh.
It's like a tab from
Got
a
it.
soda can.
Got it. Yep.
And then there's a bed, and it's decorated with the box and exterior of those like little fruit cups?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joey loves the fruit cups. So I drew rugs, and
Wow. This is 3 stories, listeners.
it's 3 stories. So the first one is the living room, and then the second one is the bathroom, and the third one is the bedroom. There's little pillows on the bed.
The attention to detail.
Thank you. And there is no way to get from floor to floor. There's no stairs.
It's
Well, they
good
have
they can
wings.
fly.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
have wings. Yeah.
they have wings. So I just really tried to go like a really goofy way with it,
Yeah.
and not not too literal. And I had a lot of fun making it. So I was like not feeling great. So I went to urgent care, and I was like, I might not get to finish my birdhouse.
And you were telling the nurses this, and they were like, we got to get you out of here.
They were like, we're admitting you to psych.
Yeah.
Hannah,
No.
are you worried at all about bird gentrification and what this might mean
This
for
is a
the
real thing.
larger neighborhood?
No.
I'm curious about what this bird is doing for a living to own 3 stories.
I mean, just anybody who's able to own a home these days. Am I right, folks?
True.
But I think it's a small bird. I think it has to be humming or smaller
Oh,
to fit
Mm-hmm.
sure.
because it's a small space.
Yeah.
I think we're all just doing what we can. I don't
To
know,
survive-
man.
To survive.
It's
the
just a
world.
vibe. I wasn't trying to. It's fine.
Listen, I
I think we
think
accidentally made Hannah sad about her wonderful project.
no. I think this bird is living a very fruitful and healthy life to have both rugs and TVs and a bed and 3 stories.
A sink, a mirror, a toilet.
Pillows on the bed?
Pillows on the bed.
The toilet has the seat down. It's the tab.
So the bird lives alone.
Yeah.
Oh, it's mating season. He needs to invite people over.
She.
Oh, excuse me. You're
The
right.
seat was down.
Yeah.
And she doesn't need anyone to have a fruitful and social life.
I'm so sorry to all women everywhere. Hannah's
Especially
absolutely
birds.
right. Yeah, especially
Especially
the
birds.
bird ones.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Kevin. I accept your apology. That's my goofy birdhouse, and it'll probably take me months to throw it away because I just think it's so cute.
I do think we should put a shelf up in the studio and try and keep as many of the projects
The
as we can,
examples.
although that may prove...
I think that
Space.
would discourage me.
From experience in my professional line of work, the more examples you collect, the less room you have
Sure, yeah.
for more examples.
Yeah, that is
It's
very true.
amazing how quick that builds up.
Yeah.
I want to see y'all's. What birdhouses you got?
Well, mine was a little half-baked.
Sure.
I was frantically searching Pinterest. I know. instead of just get some like inspiration. I don't know.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Um,
No. I'm not judging your creative process.
I think I need to air it out.
The birdhouse?
No. This thing that I'm about to tell you, I think I need to air it out. Haters don't come for me. I do not recycle as often as I should. I just saw your face change, Hannah, and that was crazy.
You tried to catch it, but you could not stop it.
Listen, no,
I probably don't either.
So my friend who I just visited in New York, she's like, we're forced to recycle. If we don't recycle, they like fine us. I think I need something like that. Otherwise, I will not be separating my trash. I will not be cleaning my pizza boxes. Like, there's oil on that. What am I going to do? Clean it off?
You can't. You have to throw that away.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you're
See?
good. You're good.
Kind of,
You're
okay.
good. You're
Okay,
good.
what about canned sodas? What about beer bottles? I just throw that away.
Okay.
See, however, I had to pivot, right? I had to change my mindset. I had to become one with Mother Earth.
I'm doing fine.
Yeah. And so I went for the thing that I knew I am always reaching for, which is a Dr. Pepper. I love Dr. Pepper. I got a bottle, I cut it in half, and I cut a cute little hole in it, and I started to paint it, but that's as far as I got. It is not cute. Apparently not safe for birds. I was fully going to use this because I love birds. I love birding. Both of you
Apparently
are
not that much.
There's
mouth open. You guys are staring at me like I'm about to kill someone, which I will kill.
I feel
one.
like-
I didn't think we'd have to find a new third co-host this quickly.
One who doesn't kill birds.
I just feel like I guess I didn't expect the heavy-handed getting to know you.
Yeah, I told you I needed to air it all out.
You're right. You know what? Look,
And I think if we're going to continue
Show
this,
about honesty.
it's a show about honesty
I think
before
I'm-
anything else.
I truly think I'm being confronted right now
No?
with my
No,
choices.
nobody's
with my
confronted.
choices. With my choices.
Oh, you're confronting
Oh.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm staring in a mirror.
I'm glad
That
someone
bird
is.
mirror.
Staring at the void, and the void says you made a shitty birdhouse.
No, truly. The whole plan was to have it. So I just recently got into birding this year, and the whole plan was to have it outside of my window, put a little bird seeds in there, and just watch these things come in. Because I do get a lot of chickadees, I get a lot of woodpeckers, and then black-winged red bird. That doesn't sound right.
Sounds fake.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like a real bird.
No, it doesn't. But neither do any of them, truly.
a good point.
Spoonbill? What is that?
Half of them have the word tit in them.
Yeah.
True.
This is my dream. This is my vision. Now I'm realizing it's not safe. Probably because there's going to be acrylic paint on it. Yeah. Voice it. Shout it out.
Kevin, you can come to the wood shop sometime, and we can make a wooden birdhouse.
Okay. I would love that.
That sounds wise. I don't think that there's anything that I can add that one would be helpful or two you don't already know. So I don't know.
I think you're right.
Kevin, I have something I know deeply and truly I need to thank you for. I'm so thankful I get to follow you and not Hannah when I have mine here in a second.
I'm just like, it's just nice to have like up front a really clear person who's always going to be the worst.
Yeah, no, truly. This is your guys' fault.
For our listeners, though, I think it's important to note that this is intended to be a relatively low effort challenge.
Yeah.
These are meant to be fun and silly and easy and quick.
But also like
But now the
celebrate
bar
creativity.
is so low. I just want to let you
is.
know, like,
Yeah.
It is.
It's so easy.
And you know what? That speaks to myself as a maker, which we'll get into.
I also think like it's good not because it looks good or is functional, but it's good.
I need you guys to not beat around the bush. Give it to me straight.
But it's good because you learned not to be cheesy boots about it,
Yeah.
but like
I did learn.
genuinely,
Yeah.
it made you be introspective about your recycling habits. It made you be introspective about like how you would approach a project like this moving forward.
It
like,
truly did. It made me more curious about recycling.
sure.
I want to try it.
Wow.
No, I'm going to recycle.
Moving on.
Yeah, I loved it.
We'll save Kevin more further embarrassment. It is
Yeah.
good to know we have a heel
Yeah.
on the show.
Truly.
Absolutely.
Truly.
I will grab mine here. Now, I'll give a little preface on mine. Two major influences on this artistic work.
Uh-huh.
One is I recently saw The Brutalist.
Sure.
Oh my God.
A movie
Please tell
that
me it's
actually
not.
doesn't feature that much brutalist architecture, but
It does feature AI though, doesn't it?
it's on his voice, I think. That's a whole other episode.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
And,
Listener, Zach's eye twitched right now.
and I also recently watched David Lynch's Eraserhead, which is set in a industrial.
Yeah.
It's basically him talking about how much he hates Philadelphia
Sure.
by painting this industrial wasteland. So I present to you now my birdhouse.
I'm really nervous about this.
You've had it under wraps. Oh my God.
I kept mine under wraps too. Whoa.
Yeah.
This is my
Abstract.
Brutalist.
brutalist birdhouse. It's for the discerning bird of architecture.
Sure.
You'll notice there's a small rectangular portion near the top corner with a hole in it. That's where you enter the
Entrance
birdhouse.
point. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Makes sense.
A large vertical box attached to it that is nothing happens there. There's actually no birdhouse happening here.
Is there access from the top box?
There is not.
Okay.
Oh,
There-
so it's just.
there's not. No, there's actually you have to go down the smokestack.
Oh.
Also
Oh.
connected to access. However, there's very little in there that you would actually want to do it. There's in particular no windows or light.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
Have that.
as our cities continue to sprawl and industrial overrun takes over our world, I figured that birds might as well get ahead of the curve and enjoy this work of art.
You spray painted it.
I did do that. Yes,
Well, now a
that's
bird
true.
can't use it.
And
Kevin's trying to find a hole.
it can't be recycled.
I found one. It's right there.
I don't know. I was like, you painted it. How did you paint it? Why is the paint so even? Why is the paint all the same matte, even though the materials are different? And then I saw the spray pattern.
Oh, I missed a part. I did. I missed a part.
But it looks great. It looks very clean. Clean lines. I, in particular, am not a fan of this architectural style.
No, neither am I.
Like,
To be clear,
yeah, like
Oh,
quite,
I like it.
quite anti.
I agree. I like natural light too much.
Yeah, right? And I like, God forbid, color.
I love things being a singular shape. I
Ugh.
think there's something. I truly am on the show to just provide problematic opinions.
Someone has to be the enemy.
So,
I-
Kevin, let's get your AI take.
No, you don't even want to go there. No, I think this is beautiful.
It is really beautiful.
I think the bird would really love chilling up at the top, and whatever bird is lucky enough to come down from the chimney,
Will
good
die
luck.
in there.
yeah,
Probably
good
die
luck.
from
Yeah.
the industrial fumes. Yeah,
Are you-
it's,
It almost gives like Venus flytrap, the chimney part at least. Are you going to put some food in there just to see what you can
Attract.
catch? Yeah,
if we're not preserving these in any form, I'm going to throw this in the trash can. That's
not
probably where it
recycle.
goes. It's been spray
Painted.
painted. So
See, I am just trying to get you guys.
I thought you were going to be like, see, and this is why I don't
Yeah.
recycle.
also the color of paint is because that's the color of spray paint I had in my shop.
What kind of birds do you imagine flying in there, living in there, making a home, raising children?
Deeply, deeply disaffected ones.
Oh, yeah.
That
okay.
makes sense for Kevin.
Yeah,
I also like. I don't know fuck all about birds.
I know a good amount. I'm not tooting my
Kevin,
horn.
what kind of bird would live in this birdhouse?
Oh, I think a small one.
That seems by
Sure.
necessity. Yeah.
No, I,
Okay, I do know sizes.
I don't imagine anything bigger than like a chickadee. I don't imagine anything bigger than like a hummingbird. I'm just listing all the birds that I just said.
Sure. You know 3 birds, and one is
listen.
a red-breasted blackwing.
My Merlin ID app on my phone to identify birds doesn't work. I put my recordings to my phone in the wee hours of the morning. I'm going to my window at like 6 a.m. Truly, this is not a joke. I'm waking up, I hear a little bird waking me up, and I'm like, ooh, what's that? I put my little microphone, I get my little recorder. This shit doesn't work. And I have to guess. I have to manually scroll through all these things like a monster to try to figure out what bird it is. So truly, this birdhouse, I think small. I think small is my
So-
size.
So
Well-
let me get this straight. You don't know what birds. You don't know what
I
birds.
can
you
name like 7.
But you don't know. You're just like, so I'm just guessing what birds I hear.
Yeah.
You-
Oh,
Well, how
yeah,
about
yeah.
we take a break for Kevin to go fix his bird app and maybe identify some brutalist birds,
Yeah.
and we'll be back in just a second on Barely Making It. Welcome back to Barely Making It. Today's topic is one that's near and dear to all of our hearts, which is, what is a makerspace? For those who this is your first episode, which is probably everybody, all three of us work in makerspaces, and a specific kind of makerspace, a library makerspace.
Yeah.
But there's a whole bunch of different spaces and with different properties where you can go and make things and have access to tools. And Hannah, do you want to jump in a little bit more with what those look like?
Sure. Yeah. So I think a lot of people, when we think of makerspaces, or especially like makerspace professionals, when we're talking about makerspaces, we're talking about spaces that have a variety of types of making materials. So sometimes that's just consumables like paint and paper and crayons and pipe cleaners. And then sometimes it's just equipment like a Cricut machine, which is used for die cutting, or a laser engraver, or a sewing machine. And then sometimes it's a combination of both. The spaces that we work in are, I think, one of the most cool examples of combining both of those things. But many makerspaces tend to fall on kind of one end of those spectrums. I think some of the defining characteristics are that makerspaces have a variety. So it's not a wood shop. It might have wood shop tools, but it should, if by my definition,
Yeah.
The only one that counts.
Thank you. I'm glad you're correct. It should have more to it than just woodworking tools, for example. Otherwise, it's just a wood shop. A makerspace is going to have more of a variety, more depth, more things that people can be introduced to. And it should be accessible. So it should be beginner friendly, and then have some availability to move up in skill level. So it shouldn't just be a crayon and a piece of paper. It can be, okay, what else can we do with this kind of art? Do we have watercolor paper and watercolors? Do we have, you're not just making a card, you're using the Cricut to cut out a shape to put on your card. Those kinds of things. Like, how can we grow the skills that we have access to the beginner level of? And I think that's pretty much where the consistency across makerspaces ends.
Yep. I would agree.
So, like, we've got that big range of, like, consumables versus equipment heavy. And then there's everything in between and different balances of those things. For example, for some libraries, they're like, this is our makerspace. And it is a bucket of crayons in a corner of the library. It's not a dedicated space. It doesn't have a lot of funding. It doesn't have dedicated staff, for example. Or like dedicated like instructional time. And then there's spaces where they are full-time, separated from any other organization, separate from a library, that have a paid admission fee, that have 24/7 access. You get like a key fob to the door, and you have access to really high level equipment or one-on-one instruction on demand, things like that. So the range can be really big. And then we also look at differences between things like, what ages is it accessible to? Typically, those paid-for makerspaces cater to adults. There are makerspaces in schools or in school libraries that tend to cater, of course, to the children that go to those schools, or even university makerspaces that cater to university students, which isn't necessarily as rigid on age, but tends to be folks who are like 18 to 25. Yeah. So I think the consistencies in all makerspaces are that they should have a variety, and then they should have a beginner level access to a lot of the different kinds of projects and the ability to grow within those projects. That's what I think like some of the core defining aspects of a makerspace are.
I'm going to add to that in saying that I also think that they should be free. And I really that's why I really love our makerspaces so much, is that, my God, you don't have to pay for anything. You really even need your library card for things, And I think that's the lovely thing that I appreciate, is that there is no barrier, for lack of a better sense, right? That there's no way that people can come into our space and not just do something and pick something up.
Yeah.
I definitely want to agree with you that accessibility is super important, and it's hard to be more accessible than free.
Yes.
I will also say, it's really hard to keep a makerspace open. Even some of the first big makerspaces, I'm trying to remember the name of there's one out in San Francisco that was huge and foundational in the movement. and now it's all gone because they couldn't find a financial model that worked for them. And so I do think, especially if you're talking about some of the makerspaces that have like larger access to wood shop and larger access to metal shop and larger access to some of these really expensive pieces of equipment to maintain, like I think there's a place in the ecosystem, in the maker ecosystem, for paid models. And I actually think one of the ones that's not too far from us here that is paid that really goes above and beyond to make things accessible within that paid structure. They have scholarships, they have discounts for if you have a library card, these sort of
Or
things.
volunteering opportunities, things like that.
Co-op.
So
Yeah.
I
Co-ops, exactly. Like financial models that already exist in other ways can
Right.
be modified to fit this structure.
But yeah, I think it's really important to, you can't be accessible if you're not open. And as much as I advocate for and appreciate our free model that we get to work with,
Yeah.
the three of us, I definitely feel for those labs that are trying to do really ambitious things in terms of materials, equipment, space, much larger than what we offer, and have kind of figured out some way that involves subscription of some kind.
Yeah, I've worked for another library makerspace before, and it was in a different state, in a state that doesn't fund libraries as well as the state that we're living in now.
Say the name of the state.
There are things I still really love about Texas,
Oh.
but but one thing that stands out to me is, I agree. I think I see the difference in having availability of resources that we have in our makerspace that we didn't in that one. So that one tends to fall on the equipment side versus the consumables side, and you had to bring in your own things to laser. We didn't even have scraps you could use or test it on. You had to bring in all of your own vinyl for the Cricut, even if it was your first time using it and you're just trying to see if it works for a project you want to do. You had to bring in, there were no consumables available. You had to bring in your own thread for the machines. You had to bring in,
wow.
so it was...
That's intense.
Yeah, but the reality is, the funding for this library, but specifically for this space, was so unreliable and inconsistent. So people would pay to have their 3D prints printed, and then they would pay by gram, which is a not abnormal model for paid. So even some libraries have versions of paid models. They're usually not memberships, but they're we have the consumables, but you have to pay for them. So we can recoup some of that consumable cost.
Right.
And that was the case for the 3D printer filament. So they paid for the initial upfront cost on the equipment, but the second the 3D printer died, the space doesn't have consistent funding and not enough staff. And that was also a library makerspace.
For someone who's never been to a makerspace before and is considering going to work on a particular project or just because they're interested, we've identified there's a pretty big diversity of makerspaces in terms of financial cost, in terms of the model that they operate under, in terms of the equipment they have on hand that you can use and the materials, whether you need to provide your own or they're available on site. How should someone who wants to start experiencing makerspaces, what sort of questions should they ask? How should they go about finding out about what's available in their local community? Because some places have labs like we have, that we work at. Others very much don't. And so any thoughts about navigating the makerspace ecosystem?
Shameless plug, go to your library. I think it's a true wealth of knowledge that the people that work there, whether they have a makerspace or not, it's access to information that you may not have had before.
And they likely know or can find very quickly other community resources. So even if it's not through the library, they can say hey, here's what I know that the community orgs are. In the same way they do with food banks and voting centers, other local resources. I think that's a really good idea. I also think as somebody who, this is going to sound like a really pretentious sentence, and I'm just so sorry from the jump.
Yes, give it to us.
So yeah, y'all just eat it up. But I have a master's in library science. I just feel I'm a master's, so actually, and I don't think that's at all required to be a very effective librarian or library staff member. I want that on the record. But I did it, and I like that I did it, and I'm glad that I did it, but I don't think it's at all necessary. But something that interests me and something that I find really valuable is helping people figure out what words to Google.
Yeah.
What words do you type into your search engine to get what you're actually looking for? Because if you're how do I learn to hem my pants? That's going to bring you to a whole bunch of YouTube videos that you're not going to know how to comb through, and you're going to say, yeah, but I don't have a sewing machine, and I don't even know what kind of needle to buy, and you're not going to have that same access to information. So I think literally just having the word makerspace is really helpful because
Absolutely.
it tends to be a pretty universal word these days for these kinds of spaces and these kinds of resources. I think also like the kinds of questions that you should be asking. So let's say you find a makerspace that isn't affiliated with something public like a rec center or a public library. Even with those, asking things like, hi, what is the cost? Is it membership based? Do I need to bring in all my own supplies? If I don't, are there any limitations on the supplies that you do have? I think some of the other questions are, especially if you have a specific project in mind, I have this specific project, and be as specific as possible, because a lot of times people will come in and they go, I want to do bracelet. And you're like, okay, well, so that's pretty big. There's a lot we could do with bracelet. But if you're like, I need to fix a charm on my daughter's charm bracelet, that can be, does that make sense for this space? Is this the space that I can come to work on something like that? Those kinds of questions can really help direct people who are familiar with makerspaces, especially the ones that they work in, to, yes, that makes a lot of sense to us, or typically, or sometimes if the answer is no, we can say, no, but this alternative might work for you. So, for example, in the space that we're in, we have some limitations on time for some of our equipment. And some people come in and they go, yeah, but I want to print something overnight. Like, I want to print a 12-hour project or whatever.
That's when I say, hell no.
Right. And we say, well, that's not for me,
Yeah.
but we do have access to these other resources. Here's their information. And so you're not just left high and dry, and it's not a hard no. It's not a page of 460 Google results that you don't know how to comb through and don't have the context for. It's talking to makerspace professionals to say, like, hey, these are the resources that I need. Does this make sense for your space, or where else can I go? Even if it's paid, asking what parts of it are paid and what parts aren't. Or are there ways that I can access some of the equipment for free? Do you have a volunteering program, a scholarship program? Those questions, I think, can be really valuable off the top. And maybe it's just me who loves to yap, but I think most makerspace professionals would just be like, I'm so glad you're asking these questions.
Yeah.
I think there's almost no more animating impulse among makerspace professionals, people who work in makerspaces of all kinds, than to help you do a project that you want to do.
Yeah.
We
And
want to do that.
It's so exciting to
Yeah.
help someone who wants to do something. And we may not always be able to say yes in our space right now at this time, but we will definitely help you figure out where you can get a yes.
Yeah.
And
Or when or how.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing to mention is for a lot of folks, it's a much less intimidating environment to go in through a class environment.
Mm-hmm.
And most makerspaces offer classes and programming of some kind.
Yeah.
That's another good thing to ask about, too.
Yeah, because some people really prefer informal learning and going in and getting started and jumping in and trying it. But other folks really like the structure of a class. And it's okay to, no matter which you prefer, to know that about yourself and go in and ask for those things.
Well, that also just gives you an opportunity to, one, see what they have, but for you to try something new if needed. Like,
Yeah, there's structure to it.
there's structure. There's more of a, I don't know, there's less of a pressure, I should say.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love TikTok and I love Instagram Reels. And like, while those are useful teachers, I almost want to suggest going in person somewhere always.
Yeah. Or even calling.
At the very least.
At the very
talking
least.
to a human.
Yeah.
The videos are nice to learn, but you can only learn so much on your own. And again, that's why I like makerspaces, is that you are learning with other people.
Community.
It's community, and it's forced. and
You're
that's-
going to learn to crochet whether you like it or not.
And you're going to learn to crochet with the crabbiest old lady, and she's going to do a bang-up job, Like,
Yeah.
And that's the part that you need to see, and that's the part that's beautiful
Mm-hmm.
about makerspaces, is that other people are doing all these things too. Other people are struggling as much as you, or
Yeah.
they probably have the same questions as you.
Yeah.
So, like, even just entering into a space that has makers to some extent is also just something that I think people should be aware of.
Yeah.
Well, no surprise that 3 Makerspace staff are really, really into makerspaces.
We love it.
But before we sign off from this topic, I wanted to ask each of you, what's your favorite piece of equipment that is available either in your makerspace or one that you visited?
Easy.
Oh, go ahead. I'm still thinking.
Embroidery machine.
Oh,
It's so cool.
It's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah.
If you're unfamiliar with embroidery machines, sometimes I word it like it's like a 3D printer for stitches. So you tell it the design that you want it to make. It can be text. It can be, there's like software that you can digitize an image that you make or you find. Like you find a SpongeBob and you want to turn the SpongeBob into a stitched out design, like a patch, for example. This machine does that. And I think some of the projects I've made with it have been really fun. I've made a few quilts that have like quotes from favorite movies on it. I've made a few baseball caps. One of my friends had a dream that she won a competition. She won a beauty pageant, but the category she won in was butt crack.
Yeah.
So I made her a hat for Christmas that said #1 butt crack.
I was kind of hoping it would have a picture of a butt crack.
No, it just said #1 butt crack. But like just being able to do, I found an embroidery file design that was for a baby's onesie that said breaking hearts and blasting farts. And I embroidered it on hand towels and they're in my bathroom. Like,
I'm sensing a theme here.
I love, oh yeah, that's true. There is a theme there. But I just love that you could
Not a
take
subtle one.
this like stitch art and make it what you want. Like you can be really, really creative with it. And it makes these projects that feel really, it's different than just like writing on a piece of fabric, right? Like it's this whole other dimension to it.
Yeah.
And it is probably the most finicky machine. And it's the machine that I curse at the most.
Yeah.
But it's my favorite by far.
What's your favorite curse word to yell at this machine?
Fuck you.
Yeah.
I don't do it around customers, but I do it
That's
frequently.
Good. No, that's good.
Yeah.
I actually love the Cricut for
So
mostly.
I was going to say the Cricut.
Yeah, it's so versatile. It's so easy. I am a simple man, and I need a single button to push, and that is the perfect machine for me.
The UX is so good on Cricut.
It's so good. It's so easy to use. I've actually gotten to making greeting cards or birthday cards.
Love
I
it.
think, and I've done it for every single person in my life for birthdays, things like that already.
But have you tried EVA foam on the Cricut yet?
No, I have not.
You
Is
can
it
do
worth
2 and 3 millimeter EVA foam, like craft foam.
it? Ooh.
And used it to make a Batman mask once, 3-dimensional.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's dangerous. All right. Maybe I'll craft something up.
That's some good ones. I know this is like really
New
geeking
catchphrase.
out. Have you guys used the puff vinyl yet?
Very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
We had a customer who brought it in, not realizing what it was, and when it puffed up, they were like, "What's happening?"
I don't know. There's just something. For me, that was like my barrier of entry.
Sure.
That is the thing that I like had to nail down, and I did, and it became relaxing for me.
Sure.
Because it was so easy, and this is the machine that I curse at the least.
Yeah. Sure.
And it's just because it's so easy and it's so fun to use. I don't know.
It is really fun. I think people get caught up in what it can't do
Yes.
very quickly.
Yes.
And I'm like, yeah, but you're not seeing all it
The
can
potential.
do.
Yeah,
Potential.
yeah. No, they just see the stickers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Zach, is that yours, the Cricut?
I'm actually going to do 2 super quick. One at the advanced end, which is the laser cutter. Any laser cutter over 40 watts or so is going to be able to do such an amazing amount of really cool art with really high quality materials.
Yeah.
And I think that's what distinguishes it from the 3D printer from me. PLA is fine. It is plastic.
Yeah.
And when I can put a really nice piece of hardwood in the laser and get an absolutely beautiful result, there's
Yeah.
nothing better.
Yeah.
On the other end of the spectrum there, pom-pom makers were new to me when I started.
I love a
And-
pom-pom
Yeah.
maker.
Pom-pom makers are so enjoyable to craft with, and you end up with something that is so much cooler than you think should come out of that process.
I know.
And there's nothing more fun than getting to show someone how you just wrap it over and over and over and over and over and over. And so pom-pom makers are like when someone's kind of looking for something, not sure,
It's such a
pretty
good
much any
starting
age,
point.
I just say like, hey, sit down and do this.
Almost
It'll
any
take-
age.
It'll
Yeah.
take 15 minutes
Yeah.
and you will be so happy.
We had like an adult caregiver be like, no, she can't do that. She's 7. And we were like, oh, she can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's going to crush it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
this is going to be the best pom-pom you've ever seen.
Totally. So those are mine. And with that, we're going to take a break and go talk more about how much we love makerspaces. But when we come back, we're going to do our maker challenge for next week. Before we end the show, we want to give our maker challenge for next week that all of our hosts will do and that you can participate along with us. You can see pictures of our projects on our social media, and we'll post that in the show notes. Hannah, what is our challenge for next week?
Okay. The challenge is, I'm excited. It's make a name tag using only paper. That means no markers, no paint.
Yep.
But you can use scissors and glue.
Okay.
Can I use a laser?
No.
No.
Oh, okay. Okay.
No.
That's too precise.
That's too,
precise.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we thinking like middle school, high school, like get to know you name tag that you put on your desk that your teacher makes you do at the first week of school?
You saw how I interpreted birdhouse?
Perfect. All right.
Yeah,
Get wacky with it.
This will be your fault.
Yeah, this will be your fault. Great.
I'm going to bring a poster size.
You're going to go.
It's going to be like, it's
About
not
me.
recyclable.
Yeah.
Listen, I recycle sometimes.
I'll believe it when I see it.
The paper.
I
It's going to be all recycled paper.
Well, with that, we are going to go find some recycled paper, except for Kevin,
Send
to
some
make
our
our
way.
name tags with. We want to see yours on social media. Be sure to use the hashtag barelymakingit. And with that, I've been Zach.
I'm Hannah.
And I've been Kevin.
Bye.